This is genuinely insane as a wild new report has dropped on the Lakers and one particular player that is not only crazy, but has fans very intrigued. We're going to break that down as well as discuss some interesting reports and new updates surrounding the future of Rui Hachimura and a few other updates as well. Ton to go over today, folks. Before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Lakers content. Your guys' support has been truly unbelievable. You guys have been absolute beasts with the support. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, continuing to pump out content every day for you all. Folks, a brand new report has dropped from Dan Wokey, a very reliable Lakers reporter. And some interesting things have came out here, and one surrounding Nikola Jokic that is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on because there are some very interesting details that have just emerged, and let's dive right into it. So a new report has basically dropped and a bunch of information has come out. Now we're going to start with one about Matisse Thybulle and Robert Williams III. I had a video on this, recently, but we're going to focus on the second part of it. And it says, in the scenario that both Giannis or Nikola Jokic wanted to come to the Lakers next summer, which player would LA rather go after? And he talked about the first one a little bit and says it might be a bit difficult to envision a Thybulle and Robert Williams trade. We'll have another full video covering that. I still think, again, it's probably not the most likely outcome at this point, but it's still possible, of course. But you can see there in the sentence, as for the second part, and as far as the second part goes, I think the organization would reconsider its stance on the viability of 3 max players because, of course, as of late, we've heard that they don't really want 3 max players, all these different things, but they would reconsider that if Jokic becomes available and that the Lakers' preferred target would be Jokic as opposed to Giannis, Now, again, this is all very interesting conversation. We're going to dive into some interesting other reports about the Nuggets, whether they want to trade him, all these different things, whether he hits free agency. But at the end of the day, we're going to be discussing this because it's fun to talk about. Is it super realistic that the Lakers go out and get a guy like Nikola Jokic? No, it's not, obviously not super realistic. But after getting Luka Doncic, you cannot write anything off for Rob Pelinka. Now, within this article, there was also the bigger question. Realistically, is it a long shot to consider Jokic or Giannis in 2027? Or do you think the Lakers have any considerable assets to possibly trade for Giannis? And this is where things took a very unique turn. Do I think either is realistic as a trade target? No, not really. Obviously, like trading for him would be difficult because the Lakers, there's a lot of teams out there that would be willing to give him a lot more than the Lakers would just because of the fact that, they gave up a lot of their assets overall in the past few years. And of course, most recently in the Luka Doncic trade. But he said the market would need to be way suppressed by a player saying they would simply walk to the Lakers in free agency. So 28 other teams shouldn't even consider bidding. And still, the Lakers offer would be thin. So the only way they would be able to trade for one most likely is through, being forcing his way to LA. And I can't see, Jokic or Giannis necessarily doing that. However, he points out that in 2027 in free agency, should either Giannis or Jokic make it there, it could be very interesting for the Lakers, especially if Doncic is the kind of season the Lakers expect out of him. And that's what the conversation I want to talk about today is because, again, Dan Wokey's pretty plugged in. And he's not saying by any means it's super likely. I'm not either. Obviously, like it'd be a long shot to get one of the top. I mean, 2 realistically, Giannis or Jokic, either one. Some of the best players of all time, surefire Hall of Famers, all these different things, and the best players in our league alongside Luka and those guys. You're at the point now where if he hits free agency, there seems to be a very big change in, I guess, philosophy. Obviously, new ownership, which we'll dive into a little bit, but the way that the team is feeling with Luka Doncic now extended, it is a much more attractive destination for free agents. We saw it with Marcus Smart. He came. We saw it with DeAndre Ayton. He came. And those are obviously smaller examples of players not as big as, named, at least name value-wise, as big as or as good as Jokic and Giannis. But clearly, Luka has a huge amount of pull. He makes everybody around him better. He has good relationships with these guys. And if he has a great season next year, it wouldn't be hard to envision if Jokic makes it to free agency, if Giannis makes it to free agency, and obviously I think Jokic is the more likely outcome here, but if either one makes it to free agency, that they would heavily consider the Lakers. You have Luka locked up for years, of course, that 3-year deal, and beyond that, of course, he'll extend. You have a young player in Austin Reaves who is supposedly going to be locked up, at $30 million over the next few years as well. We'll see what happens with that. And you just have a lot of cap space to be able to bring in a lot of these players, and that's what makes things interesting. You pair that with, of course, new ownership, and you're now at a point where you're one of the most, you've always been, of course, it's LA, you've always been one of the most attractive free agency destinations, but you're even more attractive now with Luka Doncic. And before with LeBron and AD, it was a little interesting aging, right? If you're like a young player, or even if you're a player who wants to win a championship, joining LeBron and AD would be, of course, a good option or a great option. But now with Luka, if you join Luka and potentially LeBron, depending how next year goes, and of course, Austin Reaves, you're playing the long game. You can join and be comfortable for years to come, rather than prior to the Luka trade, there was a lot of uncertainty surrounding that. And another big thing here, which was talked about, is the ownership group. You can see here, what is the main change you believe the new majority owner of the Lakers will bring compared to the previous owner? And he talked about a few of you have been asking about something that feels like way too much of an afterthought considering the impact it could eventually have on the organization. And he basically, and we'll have a full video covering this, but he basically goes on to say that it is business per usual now, but things before even, Mark Walters joined were moving in a better direction. And now you can see here, they have deeper pocketed ownership. It's reasonable to expect the Lakers will be able to take more risks in ways they spend on non-salary cap matters. And that's, of course, been the biggest thing here. You're able to go ahead and make, bigger splashes. I mean, we think about a lot of the time where the Lakers were not constrained by the cap, but not willing to go that extra mile, whether that be KCP, whether that be even Alex Caruso to a degree, and just all the trades. Lonzo Ball obviously was a part of the AD trades, not as much, but players like that where you can justify keeping them if you're willing to spend a little bit more. And now that the Lakers are a part of that, it once again adds to the fact that they are one of, if not the most attractive free agency destination going forward. And it's something that not a lot of people are talking about because, of course, they got Luka Doncic. That's obviously the headliner of the deal. But free agents that become available now, even if it's not Giannis or Jokic, even if it's, lower level guys, it's a lot more easy to, envision Nikola Jokic either trade to LA, which I think is a lot less likely, or of course a signing in free agency. And you can see here, even back in August 14th, like there's been a lot of headlines about Jokic to the Lakers. I do not think a trade is going to happen. I don't think the Lakers have enough assets, and I can't see Jokic pushing his way out of Denver towards the Lakers. And obviously, the worst case scenario, if you're planning on him being a free agent in 2027, would him being traded and then signed somewhere else to a team that has a bunch more assets. I mean, there's a lot of teams that have assets, whether that be the Thunder, whether that be even the Rockets just got KD, but they could probably put together a better offer than the Lakers. Like, the Lakers don't have a lot of stuff. However, if they can get Jokic in free agency, I don't need to show you guys the stats, but I will anyway. Unbelievable. One of the best players of all time already. He's the best passing big man we've ever seen. All these different things, and definitely a top 3 player in basketball right now. He's only 29 years old, and he wants to win. A pairing of him and Luka Doncic has to be enticing both to him and, of course, Luka. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. A couple other things here before I wrap up. I want to dive into Rui Hachimura a little bit. And obviously, looking at the depth chart now, you look at where he factors in. Probably the starting small forward. Come opening day, he could be, off the bench. They could run a Luka, Smart, Reaves, LeBron, Ayton. They could do a bunch of different things. But looking at his stats and his future with this team, he is an expiring contract, depending free agent. His future is going to heavily depend on how he does this year. Now, the Lakers could still trade Rui. He could be, moved to the deadline. But I think they're going to keep him around and see how he fits specifically with Luka Doncic with a full year. He was one of the guys who fit seamlessly like a glove with Luka because he was one of the best corner three-point shooters in the NBA. And what that allowed him to do was spread the floor for Luka Doncic. And this team at this juncture doesn't have a lot of floor spacing, right? You have Luka, who's a good shooter. You have Reaves, great shooter. Rui, great shooter. LeBron, not really the best, but can be pretty solid. Ayton doesn't really stretch the floor. But that bench unit, you're hoping Jake LaRavia can be a good shooter. Other than that, you don't have sharpshooters like you used to. Dalton Knecht, maybe, right? And by used to, I mean, we think back to, even years, Danny Green days, all these different things. Having a shooting, wing is so important. And I think Rui is going to play a huge factor into this team going forward. And that's going to ultimately determine whether he stays or whether he goes, depending on how much he's going to make. But that'll wrap it up. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on all this. A lot of new reports, a lot of new things coming out. We'll keep you up to date every step of the way. You guys are absolute beasts. Cheers.